AI has had a rough month, y'all. From these stories that come out seemingly daily about the cost of data centers, both economically and environmentally, the commencement speakers, who, as soon as they say, your future is AI, are getting booed off the stage. To a certain degree, this does make sense. That one, there is some pushback to this great shiny new thing, and then also too that the generations are reacting as you would expect. The younger generations, the millennials and the alphas, are looking at how hard it's been to get and keep a job as it is, or just looking at one more threat to that, and of course are having a visceral reaction. And then the boomers, who grew up on 50 sci-fi, are like, well, of course the robots are finally taking over. Thankfully, I have my pension, I'll be okay. And then there's Gen X, who of course respond to this as we respond to everything. Whatever. It's just another technology thing that's going to do a thing. We'll figure it out. We'll be fine. But with all of this backlash, I thought today was as good a day as any is to really look at the state of AI. Like, how is it being adopted? How is it being used? And what are the real value adds? And are those value adds worth all the Sturm and Drang associated with the cost of data centers and the possible threats to jobs? Okay, so first let's look at what AI does well. And I'm defining what AI does well as with minimal supervision and minimal errors. Things that they do mess up are easy to check, easy to spot by the human eye, easy to correct, minimal damage. So, first thing is editing. So, we think back to 20 years of using Word, and it's gotten better and better at like identifying bad punctuation, misspelled words, things like that. However, when we are talking about real editing, like you should minimize this paragraph, this sentence should be up here instead of down here. These are things that Word couldn't do, but AI can. If you work with the same AI chat for a while, it gets used to your writing style, it gets used to what you're trying to do, it really learns how you're using words and has a real good sense of sentence structure and punctuation and can make those types of recommendations to you. Next up is research. And a lot of people dismiss these chatbots as, oh, it's just like doing a Google search. Yes, it's like doing a Google search that you can ask follow up questions to. And I think that's the biggest advantage of doing, say, a search on Gemini or on Google and getting that AI answer back compared to just regular Google searches. You're able to get that initial answer and then continue to drill down or pivot to another point that you were trying to make, and it still keeps in its memory the conversation. It makes it a much better research assistant than simply doing Google searches. Next up, and this is probably my favorite use of AI, and that's brainstorming. A great way to use AI is say, give me a list of 10 possible topics for my next YouTube video. And 2 of them might be good, and 8 of them suck. But my brain is really good at looking at that list and going, oh, these 2 have value. Let me grab those. Whereas if I tried to brainstorm and come up with like 10 ideas, it would be very laborious for me. Another good one is dumbing things down. Probably my favorite and most used prompt is explain this to me as if I were 12. A lot of times you will get like overly verbose documents, and you're like, I don't want to read all of this, and I don't want to have my brain translate into real world language the concepts that are in this document. It can take that, translate this as if I were 12 instruction and really boil down complex or overly written concepts into things that are easily digestible. And then finally, as far as things that I think AI does really well right now, is tasks without nuance. Take this data set and filter it by such and such. Put the data in different buckets based on these criteria. Anything where there's simple instructions and there's no need for the AI to like come up with its own ideas on things. If it's just follow the instructions, it's really good at that. Now let's take a look at the things that I don't think AI does particularly well right now. And first is critical thinking. Not just rubber stamping that everything that you read is gospel, but really taking into account other factors when you process new information. And this is not something that people in customer service who are hoping they can automate away a lot of their customer service jobs want to hear. But I haven't seen any evidence of AI coming anywhere close to the thoughtful, critical thinking that our brains are capable of. Next is checking itself before it riggedy wrecks itself. So this is where we talk about hallucinations, right? So we've all seen it where it declares that unequivocally turkeys can fly, but turkeys can't fly. Or it produces something that's nowhere close to what you asked it for. And then when you give it that feedback, it says, oh, sure, I can fix that for you, and then doesn't fix it for you. So there is still a huge lacking of understanding of quality control when it comes to the current state of AI. Next is creativity. So this is how I perceive what AI is currently capable of as far as creativity goes. It has to do with juxtaposition, right? So if you have two concepts or two artistic things or something like that that you put next to each other and say, combine these, it can do that. However, what it can't do is take a concept that's way over here and a concept that's where's my camera? Way over here, and go, what happens if I combined these two ideas? That to me is creativity. That to me is what our brains still do remarkably better than AI. Next up, and this is an interesting one, this has to do with mental stamina. Have you ever had like a 3, 4, 5, 10-hour marathon session with your AI where you're going back and forth with things like doing some brainstorming, some editing, some of the things that we talked about earlier that it does really well, and notice a degradation in the performance the longer the chat goes? I have noticed this and called AI out on it. I noticed that 2 hours ago you were performing much better than you are now, and it says something like, sorry, yes, I'm having trouble keeping all these ideas in our head. And I'm actually heartened by this. This whole idea that machine thinkers are going to replace human thinkers has to do with, well, machines don't wear out, which, first of all, that's in no way true, right? Tell me one piece of machinery that lasts longer than however long without maintenance, without having to be fixed, whatever. So I reject that out of hand. Thinking is hard, it requires energy, and sometimes over time that energy will deplete. And then finally, as I said, tasks without nuance is something it's good at. So of course, something that it struggles at is anything that has to do with nuance. And this is what I really worry about when I see, people who run customer service centers or whatever going, oh, we can use an AI to troubleshoot so many of the calls that come in. What about those things that require nuance, right? Those things where a human operator says, okay, you don't have everything that we require in order to give you this service or whatever, but you have most of it and you can get the next one next week because this is your circumstance, right? So I will flag this, that you'll get this to us next week. We'll go ahead and give you benefits or whatever. Like, these are the types of bargaining things and nuanced decisions that human brains can make that AI brains can't handle that type of complexity. And so I'm really concerned as more and more call centers go toward using AI, we're going to have a lot of people who are getting subpar service, I think, as a result of that. So let's look at the list. On the things it does well, we've got editing, research, brainstorming, dumbing things down, and tasks without nuance. And then for things that it doesn't necessarily do well right now, we've got critical thinking, checking itself, creativity, mental stamina and nuance. So looking at these two lists, and the question is AI worth it? I'm not here to answer it. I'm here just to pose it. But I will say, as far as how do I feel about this, I understand why AI's had a rough month. If this video got your brain thinking in a different way than it was thinking before, I'd appreciate a like. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and we will talk again soon.